right, Mr. Peel and Mr. Burt, I'm right on it. Oh, thank you. Bye. Oh, hey guys. I'll be right with the lesson. Let me just go get ready for it. So, the first part of this lesson is all about factoring out the GCF. So, what is that? So, factoring out my GCF means that I'm basically undistributing things. So if you look at this first problem, it's 7x plus 42. You'll notice that both of them are divisible by 7. So I'm going to put the 7 on the outside, and then inside the parentheses, I'm going to have x left, and then plus 6. And then that is what that factored out form looks like. It's the 7 on the outside, and then the x plus 6. If I distribute that back in, I get the same thing. That's what factoring means. The second example, you'll notice that all of these numbers are divisible by 5. So I'm going to have a 5 on the outside. And then all of them also have an x. And x here is to the first power. That's my smallest power, so I'm going to take that out. So in factoring this, what I do is I divide each one of these numbers by 5. So I'm left with 5 here, 3 here, and then 1 here. Remember, 5 divided by 5 is 1. And then because this was x to the first, or I'm just going to subtract 1 from each one of those exponents. So this would be x to the fourth, x squared, and then I took this one out. So this is the complete version, and that is my answer for factoring the GCF. The second part of this lesson is on solving with square roots. Now, what you have to remember with solving with square roots is there's two answers. So it's not as simple as when you were in geometry, because we're now in Algebra 2. So what we do is, now I have x squared equals 121. So now I'm going to do the square root of 121, which gives me not just 11, but also negative 11. And so both of these answers work because negative 11 times negative 11 is positive 121, and the same thing with 11 times 11. So you can also write it as that plus or minus 11. Now, you're going to be faced with problems like this too, where you have an equation. So you solve it just like any other equation. You would add 81 on both sides. Now you're trying to get x alone, so I'm going to now divide by 25. And now I'm x squared equals 81 over 25. I'm going to leave it as a fraction. The reason why I'm going to leave it as a fraction is that I'm actually going to take the square root. (81 over 25), well, the square root of 81 is 9. Square root of 25 is 5. So my answer is actually the fraction 9 over 5, a positive or a negative. And I'm done with that problem. That's why I always leave things in fractions, and you should too. And then the last tricky one on the simple ones is if I subtract 144 from both sides, I get x squared equals negative 144. And if you remember, we usually can't take the square root of negative numbers. We usually write that as a no solution. So this actually, if you remember back to right before our building closed, was 12i. Okay? So we would write it as plus or minus 12i, that imaginary number. Don't worry about that so much in this lesson. We're going to cover that later on. And then we have the harder ones, which most students get a little bit mixed up with these. So let's go through this one in detail. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 7 on both sides. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide by that 5. Now, the trick with this is I can't actually subtract that 3 out first because I have this squared that's around the parentheses, and I got to get rid of that exponent first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the square root of 25 first. Now, the trick with this one is when I do that, I get a positive and a negative 5 as results. So that results in 2 answers when I subtract my 3 on both sides. There's one case where x equals negative 3 plus the 5, and then I have the other answer where x equals negative 3 minus 5. So both answers are actually correct, and that's what we're looking for. So this becomes x equals 2, this becomes x equals negative 8, and those are actually both of my answers. That's why solving with square roots is a little bit more difficult, because you have to remember that there's 2 answers to everything. Let me know if you have any questions as you go through. There's more videos on this through Khan Academy and more practice. Just make sure that you're writing down the problems and working these out either on a whiteboard, if you have one, or on a separate sheet of paper so you can track your mistakes. Thank you.